Chapter 10 of Morningstar-Esthajnalcsillag. The situation in Hungary kept on deteriorating. The 5-year plans that the regime, guided by the communist dictators who were put at the head of the government by Russia, started to fall apart. With the death of Stalin in 1953, Rákosi, who was the head of the Hungarian dictatorship, lost his most stalwart supporter. Rákosi was not much better than Stalin, and he did nothing to better the lives of his own people. He was a puppet of the Russian regime, placed by Russia to force the Hungarian people to produce more goods and food for Russia. These 5-year plans were expectations by Russia that no human being could possibly fulfill. The quotas for production at the factories were ridiculous. The farms now collective farming were producing below expectations, which led to all the products available being sent to Russia as export. In return, Russia was to supply oil and gas, but this was mostly forgotten. Russia owed a lot of money and goods to Hungary, as well as to her other satellite countries. To think that a farmer could be starving in a village when he worked from dusk to dawn was unheard of before. This totally idiotic regime took over. But this was the case now, and people were starting to grumble. The great, shining communist future that was promised to them all was nowhere in sight. Even the young who believed the lies of the communist agitators now saw that this form of government is for anything but the good of the masses. Farmers who could not produce the small amount of goods that was told to them to produce were called saboteurs and an enemy of the state. And the fact that weather and other things, such as crop failure and infections, could be the cause of falling behind in production was not accepted as an excuse. In communism, even the weather must comply. More and more farmers gave their household barnyard animals into the collectives. So the milk production to help feed the children was also in the hands of the milk collectives. The grain was harvested by the collectives, and a small amount of the grain was given to the farmer that belonged to such a collective as payment to raise his own pig or cow. Vegetable gardens around the houses thrived as always, but even the produce from these had to be reported, and a percent of this also was given to the collective. The members in a collective were paid according to how many points they collected in a year. So every member of a family, even the oldest and the youngest, went to do some kind of work, just so they will have more points and receive more grain at the end of the year. The corn and wheat received as payment was hardly enough to feed the family, let alone have some left over for sale. The black market thrived as usual when people are trying to keep their children from starving to death. Hungary was considered the breadbasket of Russia, with its high success in great quality wheat production. Many Russians' stomachs were filled by Hungarian wheat, while the Hungarians that produced it were starving. The factories were, by this time, completely government-owned. No private factories remained. New factories were built for steel production. Russia needed steel, and a lot of it. New coal mines were also opened. Coal for export was mined at a rapid pace. Workers that did not fulfill their quota of what was expected from them were placed on a shame board for everyone to see their names as not doing enough to build the socialist Hungary. Workers that did manage to fulfill the impossible quota were placed on the honor roll and given rewards. If a worker could not do what he was told or expected of him, then he was said to be an enemy of the socialist Hungary and sent to Siberia to learn how to work properly. Shifts without pay, called communist shifts, were organized. And of course, this extra shift was without pay. This was for the good of the people and the building of the socialist Hungary. Therefore, these shifts were to be done happily singing and showing pride that the already overworked and underpaid people are allowed to do an extra shift for free. Accidents in the factories were not spoken about. Being overtired and underfed people had many accidents. There was no workman's compensation, nothing. It was said that if you cannot work, then do not eat either. If a factory worker's machine broke down, he was accused of doing it on purpose to hold up production. Due to the unbearable hardships that almost everyone in Hungary faced, the traditional roles inside the family started to take on different forms. The women and girls started to go to work outside of the home. There were plenty of jobs available because so many of the men were killed in World War II. The problem was that these women were undereducated and undertrained. They were raised to be good wives and mothers, to take care of their own little vegetable gardens and a few animals found around the house, such as chicken and ducks, geese, one or two cows, goats, and one or two pigs, among other things. Now these women stood at the gates of factories looking for work so that their children will have food to eat and clothes to wear. Oftentimes, the women went to work in underground mines and the building industry, doing a man's job as well as any man. There were no nurseries available for the babies, and younger grandmothers were forced to find a job outside of the home also. So child care was not a solved issue. Only a few hundred places existed, and these were reserved for the higher party members' children. Overtime, of course, was never paid. It was expected to kill yourself from work for the good of the socialist Hungary. As you can guess, the life of a minister did not improve either. Morningstar's father decided to supplement his pay as a minister from teaching, and the tourists that before came from the West now came from the Eastern Bloc of Soviet satellite countries. These tourists were almost as poor as Morningstar's father. Morningstar's mother decided to go to work when her younger little girl was 2 years old. Morningstar's mother was lucky. Since she was such a beautiful young woman, the owner of one of the cafes by the lakeside hired her as a waitress. He said that she would draw the male customers to the cafe by her looks. This was a great favor because no one wanted to hire the wife of the Lutheran minister. Morningstar's mother donned her waitress uniform. consisting of a black dress with white lace trim, white little lace apron, and a white lace band in her pretty brown hair. She still had a perfect figure even after giving birth to 3 children. The young woman definitely did get the attention of the men, passing by the cafe and then going in to have an espresso or some other sweets, just so they may look at this lovely woman. All of this attention came to the ears of Morningstar's father and added to all of the gossip of some women who were jealous of Morningstar's mother's job. Well, all hell broke loose. The father accused Morningstar's mother of flirting with the man and being too cordial with them. If the young woman smiled at a man, she was asked, why is she smiling at him? And if she did not smile, then she was asked why she is not friendly enough with the customers. The young woman learned a long time ago not to argue with her husband. It was just of no use. So again she ran away, but with a new man this time. Again, Morningstar was sent to her maternal grandmother's house to look for her mother. There, the little girl found her mother and the other man. Both of them asked Morningstar not to tell her father that they are there, and that Morningstar would be rewarded with chocolate and a few pieces of change. This made Morningstar very angry. Not only was she to lie, but she would be paid for it. This was more than the little girl could stomach, so she threw up right into this new man's lap. For this behavior of hers, the little girl got a slap from her mother. Morningstar's maternal grandmother came to the rescue and tried to explain the way things are to the 10-year-old little girl. Morningstar accepted this situation. I mean, after all, it was not the first time that her mother ran off, with or without a man. Morningstar did not blame her mother. The little girl understood that living with her father was not easy, and that her mother suffered a lot at the father's hands. Morningstar's father grew more and more jealous as time went by, and the paternal grandmother's frequent comments belittling her daughter-in-law were like oil on a burning fire. By this time, Morningstar's father was using physical punishment on his firstborn son also. But this did not seem to deter the young boy's antisocial behavior any. Just like hitting his wife did not stop her from leaving him. Morningstar's mother was looking for a way out from a bad marriage and all of the abuse, and she was hoping that a new man would be the way out for her. The young woman, who was barely more than a child when she was married, probably would have needed a gentler hand and more love and understanding from her husband. Morningstar's father did not have a role model to follow. Since his father died in war when he was an infant, maybe this was the reason why he did not know how to treat his wife and how to gain control of his son. The paternal grandmother had too much influence over her son. And Morningstar's mother and Morningstar were usually at the top of the list that the paternal grandmother had to complain about. The grandmother seemed not to notice the behavior of her firstborn grandson, and she doted on the boy. However, the boy did not seem to show any affection for anyone in the family, only hate and anger. Morningstar was of the opinion that her brother hits her because that is what the boy sees from his father. It seemed to be an accepted fact that to hit a woman is all right in Morningstar's household. The young boy, now getting close to his teenage years, was in need of professional help, but no one would admit to this. Complaints from other parents came about the boy being rude and hitting and pushing other schoolmates. Mostly the girl students got the brunt of his actions. All of the negative behavior from the boy was tabled as being caused by him turning into a teenager. There did not have to be a reason or a valid cause to hit. The boy just beat Morningstar every chance he got. The fact that Morningstar was liked and accepted by everyone made the young boy even more violent towards the little girl. Complaining to anyone was of no use, Morningstar knew this by now. So she made up her mind that one of these days she would be big enough and repay this boy's wicked ways, and that maybe one day her father would see the need for counseling for this boy. If the situation did not change, Morningstar was convinced that her brother would one day kill somebody. End of chapter 10.